It is now 80 seconds to midnight. Well, actually, it's earlier in the day. I'm at the Japanese Peace Pagoda at Willen Lake in Milton Keynes. Later this evening, this place is going to mark the 80th anniversary of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima 80 years ago on the 6th of August 1945. This year's ceremony also recalls the bombing of Nagasaki, the nuclear disasters at Chernobyl and Fukushima, and remembers all the victims of war everywhere. It's 80 years since the first day nuclear weapons were ever used, and it has only got worse ever since. We are now 80 seconds to midnight. It's a stark warning that came from the bulletin of the atomic scientists as they reset the doomsday clock earlier this year. They set the clock at 1 second closer to midnight, they say, because the world is so perilously close to the precipice. A move of even a single second is an indication of extreme danger and an unmistakable warning that every second of delay in reversing course increases the probability of global disaster. By moving the doomsday clock from 90 to 89 seconds to midnight, these scientists warn that we are now the closest to catastrophe we have ever been. They list a number of alarming signals as they warn about the risk of nuclear bombing, including the war in Ukraine, which they say could become nuclear at any moment because of a rash decision or through accident or miscalculation. The conflict in the Middle East is threatening at every moment to spiral out of control into a wider war. The countries that have nuclear weapons are increasing the size and role of their arsenals, investing hundreds of billions of dollars in weapons that can destroy civilization. The nuclear arms control process is collapsing, and high-level contacts among nuclear powers are totally inadequate given the dangers at hand. Alarmingly, it is no longer usual for countries without nuclear weapons to consider developing nuclear arsenals of their own, actions that could undermine long-standing non-proliferation efforts and increase the ways in which nuclear war could start. It is now 80 seconds to midnight. As we have seen this year, nuclear weapons are not, and they have never been, a deterrent, a way of preventing an outbreak of war. We have seen the US and Israel use stoked-up fears of nuclear capability to bomb supposed nuclear facilities in Iran. But in all this, they never acknowledge the hypocrisy of continuing to grow their own nuclear stockpiles. We have seen India and Pakistan, two of the covert nuclear powers, move close to the brink with a border clash and being reprimanded by Trump and other world leaders who continue to keep their fingers on their own nuclear triggers. In addition, the scientists warn the impacts of global climate change could increase in recent months as sea levels, global temperatures, and other indicators surpass previous records and the greenhouse gas emissions continue to rise. The dangers they list are greatly exacerbated by a potent threat multiplier. The spread of misinformation, disinformation, and conspiracy theories degrade the communications ecosystem and increasingly blur the line between truth and falsehood. The United States, Russia, and China have the collective power to destroy civilization. They have the prime responsibility to pull the world back from the brink. They can do so, but only if their leaders seriously begin good faith discussions about these global threats. They have to take the first step without delay. The world depends on immediate action. It is 80 seconds to midnight. The Cold War came to an end over 30 years ago in 1991. During those tense years, for almost half a century after Hiroshima, we were told by the United States and the Soviet Union that nuclear weapons were there only as mutual deterrence, what was called MAD, mutual assured destruction. But instead of things getting better since then, things have got worse, and they look like getting worse. Trump is committed to a horrendous increase in his nuclear armory. He has sent troops onto the streets against people of his own nation, and he is silencing the voices not only of protest but of critical journalists who ask basic yet simple questions. Putin has waged war against his neighbour, his nearest neighbour. Even critics within his system are dealt with capriciously. Britain has agreed to take even more US nuclear weapons on British soil, unravelling all the achievements of the women at Greenham Common in the 1980s and the 1990s. All the nuclear powers, instead of using their power for good, are complicit in the use of starvation, hunger and famine as weapons of mass destruction in the Gaza Strip and sectarian slaughter in Syria. We are frozen in fear, a fear that is more immobilizing than the most freezing days of the Cold War. And we are 89 seconds to midnight. What are we to do? What are people of faith to do? It's easy to despair when we see the so-called evangelicals in America, dazzled and enthralled by Trump and his regime, unquestioning in their blind allegiance, uncritical in their response, falling down before the idolatrous altar of a godless and fearless regime. It is easy to despair when we see the leadership of the Russian Orthodox Church concocting theological positions that justify their unquestioning and blind allegiance to the Putin state, uncritical in their response, falling down before the idolatrous altar of a godless and fearless regime. It is sad when a retired Church of England bishop sees fit to take up almost a full page in the Church Times, close to this awesome anniversary, to twist the just war theory, to justify the continuing stockpiling of nuclear weapons. Today is the Feast of the Transfiguration. The bright light of the Transfiguration is a very different light to the atomic flash that consumed Hiroshima 80 years ago. In today's Gospel reading, Peter, James and John, instead of being transfigured, are transfixed. They are terrified. They want to remain frozen in the present or even in the past, building memorials instead of engaging in action. But Jesus leads them back down the mountain and leads them into action. Immediately after, he heals, he rebukes evil, he shows how valuable the children and the voiceless are. He calls us to costly discipleship, and he actually rebukes and condemns indiscriminate violence against civilian populations and people we are in danger of seeing as our ideological opponents, our enemies. We are 89 seconds to midnight, but we have hope. We are called to action. We are called to speak up for the voiceless and those we see as having no value. We must rebuke violence and chastise the powerful. 80 years after Hiroshima, we are 89 seconds to midnight. But let us not be transfixed or immobilized. Christ calls us to go back that mountain, to act, to be living signs of the kingdom, to be transfigured. We are 89 seconds to midnight, but we are children of light.